Everyone, please take your seats. We're about to begin. Please allow me to introduce our next panel, Planetary Geographies, led by Professor Ijlal Muzaffar, with Pietros Babasikas, Aurelian Lemonnier, and chaired by Dr. Razia Sadek. I will now be introducing each of the panelists. Introducing Dr. Sadek, she's an associate professor at the School of Education, LUMS. She received her doctorate in art education from Columbia University, New York. Her areas of research include teacher education, higher education, and environmental education, in all of which she investigates how learning happens through and with arts. Dr. Sadek has over 20 years of experience in program development and instruction in arts, higher education, as well as teacher education, graduate, and professional education programs in Pakistan and the United States. Next, introducing Professor Ijlal Muzaffar, a professor of architectural history at Rhode Island School of Design. He earned his PhD from MIT, a Master's of Architecture from Princeton University, and a BSc in Mathematics and Physics from University of Punjab. He's a founding member of Aggregate and Architectural History Research Collaborative and Publishing Platform. Next, introducing Pietros Babasikas, an architect and educator specializing in the intersection of architecture and the climate crisis. As director of the HBA Architectural Studies at the University of Toronto, he focuses on design, liberal arts, and global engagement. Babasikas has worked projects, including the Archipelago Thesis Studio, the Aegean Marine Life Sanctuary. He co curated the Depression era project and has worked on installations and exhibitions worldwide. And lastly, introducing Aurelian Lemonnier, an architect, architecture historian, and curator. He curated temporary exhibitions and developed the architecture collection of the Centre Pompidou, Paris. Since 2004, he has been teaching at the School of Architecture, Industrial Design, and Applied Arts in Paris. In 2017, he became the director of the Museum of the History of Immigration, Paris. He has researched post independent South Asian and Middle Eastern architecture and contributed to the Dhaka Art Summit in Bangladesh. Over to you. Please continue with the discussion. Thank you.
Could we check if everybody can hear me? Yes, fantastic. So, welcome to our panel, Planetary Geographies. Thank you to the Design Summit team, the sponsors, and all the team of this big event for inviting me to chair this session. I am really privileged to do so. I think there's no time like now to have a discussion about planetary geographies when we are at the heart of the climate crisis in Pakistan, and in a city which has it's considered one of the most polluted cities in the world. These lines as a globe, but as Spivak has famously quipped, the globe are computers. No one lives there. The world as planet is always larger than the globe, and we have divided it into finite territories on both sides of the charged borders. For example, here in the city of Lahore and on the other side in Amritsar. Mountain ranges, glaciers, tectonic fault lines cut through oceans, countries, and continents. These geographies have intelligences and agency of their own, much larger than any concept that we project onto them. They remind us of this umbrella, planetary geographies, and the talks and panels, exhibitions organized to evoke the contours of planetary geographies in two forms. Geographies that transcend the sum of nation states, history that have been untouched by inequities and voicing inequities and platforms. For those who have been at the receiving end of things like planetary inequities, everybody doesn't have an equal voice in stating what they have suffered or to make a difference in the future. They have already been coded and mobilized in histories of power as well as resistance. The umbrella of Planetary Geography seeks to showcase talks, panels, and exhibitions that highlight the role of design.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Um, because I used to be trained as a museum curator for years in Paris. I was at a museum to be team uh, to be more a case study with museum. Quote, like, in France, I don't know if it is the case in Pakistan, but in France, in the college, geography is taught, by the same teacher than history. So obviously, from our background as a French, history and geography are very linked together. And in fact, something very simple idea. You need 10 or 15 years to understand them very well. Obviously, very linked. Uh, Geography and history and time. So exactly what we an idea which has been shared by any curator in the world because it was understanding by which is a very conservative job. And we did that, we tried to do that in Centre Pompidou 15 years ago, and we call it, with Catherine Grenier, chief curator in Pompidou at that time, on the very name of multiple modernities. Multiple modernities, it means to shake a little bit the traditional way of explaining history of art. We were at a time where the decolonized question was entering strongly in the history of art. And the idea was obviously to bring different scene and not to think about history of art or history of architecture as the center and the periphery, but much more as a constellation happening at the same time or not, and without any kind of hierarchy. That's what we called multiple modernities, and today it's more obvious maybe in the field of museum, but at that time it was quite challenging. So, which is the cover of the stood that it was a kind of map, another way of mapping the history of architecture. So, so and in the same place in Centre Pompidou, on those of you made by this kind of circular bay, which is quite uh, where the from Australia and displacement, where all the flour in Qatar is made. So you have on your left-hand side the flour mill, and nearby a new district built by the Emir, which is a cultural district, and on the left-hand side you will see the Museum of Islamic Art. On the background, Museum of so of the conception of this new museum, where the landscape is very important. The team called Elemental, led by Alessandro and he started with this model. He won the competition actually with this model. Main one is the old factory with the side. He was building a kind of slope, very arid. With project evolved and evolved a little bit. Here we are in 2019. And the evolution of this slope, and I will sorry. Just like, oh sorry.